Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of January 15th to order, please. And as we look at tonight's agenda, there's a few things that I would like to change about here. So first off, item 10.4, and we have item 9.1. I'd like to have council consider approval of the agenda with 10.4 to follow item 9.1, so that way they're together. And also that we move item 13.1, which is the Sooke Seniors Activity Center request, to immediately following the public question and comment period, as well as 11.1, the Murray Road staircase. I'd also like to move that to follow the public Q&A. So we'll go item 8, then 13.4, then 11.1. My reason for that proposal is that when we discussed the Seniors Drop-In Center before, it was quite late in the evening and we didn't have any of our attendees still present. And also I view the 11.1 Murray Road staircase as a bit of unfinished business from the last meeting, so we'll have that earlier. So perhaps, and then in addition to that, we have some supplementary information. So in the yellow pages, there is the 11.1 Murray Road staircase RFQ. We also have discussion item 12.1, the Mayor and Council Open House, and 12.2 is Development and Engagement Committee Terms of References. So with all those changes, is council comfortable to move ahead with those shifts? Moved the agenda as it's amended. Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Seconded by Councillor Ray. Any other questions on this? Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, item 6 here is the minutes of the regular meeting from December 11th. There's a few comments that I would like to make in regards to the memorial or tribute bench policy. That item is coming forward next Monday, the 22nd, at our committee of the whole. So it's in this meeting minutes here, and that's coming forward next week per our direction. So look for council to approve the minutes unless there's any errors or corrections. Moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Anything further from anyone? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, motion's carried. Okay, we have our delegations for this evening. Each delegation is allotted 5 minutes to speak, so I'd like to start off with Habitat for Humanity. Yolanda Mayer, is that correct, Mayor? Mayer, okay. Welcome, please, and please just turn on the microphone. And thank you, it's nice. Note right on the base of the... Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Habitat for Humanity. My experience is that most people have heard of the organization and have some understanding that we deal in the affordable housing sort of continuum. And so I'm here to give a little bit more background. We have a philosophy that we help families build strength, independence, and stability through ownership, which is one of the things that differentiates us from other affordable housing providers in the region, that we're a home ownership model. We share a vision that everyone should have a safe and decent place to live, and we deliver on that by mobilizing volunteers and the community partners that we come across all spectrums, be they educators, be they sponsors, be they volunteers, to help us build homes to break a cycle of poverty in our communities. Habitat Victoria is a charity that's part of an international consortium of charities called Habitat for Humanity in 70 countries around the world, and there are 56 affiliates working here domestically in Canada. Okay, the first thing that we need to do, which any developer needs to do, is to secure land, as and I'm sure you can appreciate that has been very challenging for our affiliate over the last couple of years. We, like everyone, got caught up in the incredible reality of what it costs to buy land, and the reason I'm here tonight is that we have offered put an offer on some land here in Sooke, and I wanted to talk to you about what that would look like for us to be here. Once we've secured land, the next thing that we need to do is to fundraise to build the homes on that land. And we do that through a variety of means. We get some public funding, but mostly we go out into the community and ask people and communities and businesses to support what we do. And we work with places like Camosun or with the military to help build the homes, so we look for in-kind donations as well. So it's volunteers, it's sponsors, it's people providing the material to build the homes that bring it all together. Once we have a project secured, then we select qualified families and we prepare them to become homeowners. You cannot have previously owned a home through our program, so usually there's a pretty significant learning curve in what that's going to look like for them. Our families are Canadian citizens or permanent residents for at least 2 years. They have lived in the Greater Victoria area, and they have minor children living in their home. One of those children needs to be under the age of 10. We have 3 core criteria. The families must be living in need of decent, affordable housing, and that is a full spectrum of how we identify that need. They have to also have the ability to pay the interest-free mortgage. So these are not people who have no income or ultra-low income or, let's say, are on the cusp of homelessness. These are people who are going to be able to manage a mortgage, taxes, and the responsibilities of home ownership. And they also need to be willing to partner with Habitat, and they do that in a number of ways. Once we've identified partner families, we then work with them to build their homes using donated funds, donated new building material. We do not get it from our restore, which some people think, and skilled and unskilled labor. The in-kind donations of labor and building supplies are critical. So, for example, in this picture, you see an instructor from Camosun College with a student. So we like to also provide living classroom experiences. So rather than building a shed and dismantling it at the end on the school grounds, you're helping to build a home that you can drive by for years to come and feel proud of that you helped contribute to. Each family has to contribute 500 hours of what we call sweat equity. That can be on the job site, it can be in our restore, it can be at our events. And then they purchase their home. This is another misconception. They do purchase their home at the full fair market value. They are homeowners, not tenants. But what makes it affordable are our mortgage terms. Habitat builds the home and then is also the lender. There's no money down required. There's no interest on the loan, and amortization is not relevant to us. Instead, what happens is families pay annually based on their household income, no more than 30%, and we recalculate it annually. So that's what makes the home affordable. It may take some families a long time to pay it off, maybe beyond the time that they live there, but instead of rental, they are building equity during that time, which is theirs to take with them when they leave the Habitat home. We then take the mortgage payments that they're making and we use that cash flow to use for seed funding to build future homes. So there's kind of a pay-it-forward model going on. As a homeowner of Habitat, not only are you building your own equity and building your own dream of a safe and stable place for your family, you're providing the seed funding to build a home for another family that was in your situation. So it's a really great pay-it-forward model. We've built 22 homes so far and served 26 families in 4 different municipalities. We have not yet built in Sooke or on the West Shore. We'd like to. I thought you might find this stat interesting. This is from December of each year, 2016 over 2017. The value for townhomes in Sooke increased 28% to $531,000.
Sorry to interrupt. It's just we are out of time.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask council if they would consider another 5 minutes allocation for this delegation. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Ray. We'll call the question on the extension. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Please
Thank you for
continue.
that.
And please reset the timer.
Oh, I'm good? Okay, not me. Boom. Oh, it's right here. There we go. I was like, oh. Okay, so anyway, I thought that was interesting. I dug out the stat for Sooke's specifically. I'm here tonight because we put the offer on 2008 Sooke Road. This is a vacant property that is in your town centre. We're interested in building 12 affordable townhomes here. It's a long, narrow lot. It's going to be an unusual build, and it is going to require both a zoning amendment and an OCP amendment, so we'll be coming forward with that. And, what we want is to deliver an affordable housing experience for families in Sooke where they can walk where they need to go, hopefully, eliminating as much as possible the need to travel outside. We will focus on selecting families from Sooke. And so this is just a little kind of sketch of what we were thinking of doing with the property. From council and from the community, we obviously will need that support. We want to maximize the number of units that we can, and that's going to involve some variances. And that's why I came tonight, was just to introduce this. And you'll be seeing more coming up, and I was hoping that this would be supported by the community and council at large. And that is the actual end of my presentation, unless there are any questions.
Not bad. Okay, so I'll turn that over to council. I think at the moment, until we actually receive the formal application, it'd be difficult for council to say that, we would approve the amendments or not without receiving the whole information. But I am grateful that you made the presentation about habitat here at council tonight, so that it's something that we can all be made aware of. So do you know how close are you to actually making that application?
I think that we're probably at least 4 to 8 weeks away from making that application.
Okay, so in the coming months then.
Yeah.
Okay, so turn to Councillor Ray, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation, and I'm quite excited, actually. It certainly is something that's well needed in the community, so thank you for coming.
Councillor Loggins?
Thank you for your presentation. I just was curious if this was connected to the research that you did recently in town at the Sooke Family Resource Society. I know Habitat came and spoke to some families about whether it was needed in the community, and I wanted to know if that was connected to this.
That is connected. Project. Yeah, part of our research is to look at the need and to look at the interest, because, as I mentioned, first and foremost, we would want to attract families to our program who already live here.
Just to follow up on that, do you know what that obviously it determined that there was a need for for 12 units, but do you think perhaps in the future there could be more, and it's just based on availability of property, or do you think that kind of serves the need at this time?
I don't have the answer to that question. I think that, we look at opportunities as they are presented to us, and we'd have to see. We're going to be doing more what we call interest kind of introductions to Habitat to attract more families in the months ahead as part of our feasibility study.
Anything else from members of council? Councillor Pearson, then Casper.
Yes, just thank you for your presentation. I look forward to hearing more from you, so it's good.
Thank you.
Excited about having it in Sooke, so thanks.
Go ahead, Councillor Casper.
Just 2 questions. One is, what was your determination on the average family income in Sooke? I saw 70-something thousand. Was that Greater Victoria?
That's the Greater Victoria figure.
Victoria.
I don't have the Sooke specific figure.
Well, I think we've got the CMH, or no, the the census information. I think it's around 74 or thereabouts. It's in the 70s. And secondly, what is the dollar amount for each unit? Have you made a determination on that yet?
What they'll be worth?
Yes.
We haven't made the determination yet. We need to get down and figure out what we can actually build and what's going to work. But the fair market value will be determined by a comparative market analysis by at least 3 different realtors, and that's how we use it to determine. But as I said, the purchase price is less relevant to affordability than the ongoing costs of what it will take for a family to live there. And that is set at no more than 30% of gross household income, and most of our families are at 25%, inclusive of the property tax and half of the strata fee.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight, and
Thank
look
you for the
forward
extra
to
time.
seeing you again soon. Okay, our next delegation this evening is the Team Sooke, Juan to Fuca. We've received word that, unfortunately, the members of the delegation that we're going to present are quite ill at the moment and were not able to attend. However, I believe our corporate officer has the information there, so I will turn it over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so in accordance with the district's policy, When money is not spent on the purpose for which it was designated, then approval of council is required to reallocate those funds for something else, which is what has happened in this case. The Team Sooke Juan Fuca team applied for a grant last year for an Iraqi refugee family. The council approved a grant of $3,600 for the provision of bus passes. At that time, there was no bus pass program available, but since that time, it has been brought back into the system. So the organization is requesting that the $3,600 grant be reallocated for the family towards their rent costs rather than the bus passes.
Okay, and that information is also within the written materials that were provided. So I'm going to turn to council to see if you are comfortable providing this authorization tonight without the delegation. Councillor Casper?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So is the 3,600, is that applied over 1 year? Or is it just applicable for the first 3 months? Because it makes a big difference. If there's a rent subsidy, is it just being spread so that you get more bang for the buck over a period of time?
Do we know that?
Through your worship, through to Councillor Casper.
Right.
Unfortunately, the organization has not provided that information, so if council isn't comfortable, we could have them come back on the 29th to answer that question.
There is a comment here that they are spending $550 a month more of the monthly living budget in rent than originally planned. So I'm only assuming, though, that 3,600 is covering off that additional cost of monthly rent, 7 months roughly. Councillor Pearson?
Just one question through the chair to the finance director. This money was already been allocated, correct? So we've planned for it in our budget, so we'll just be moving it within there.
Through the chair, that's correct. The money's already been allocated to these folks, just they haven't spent it on what they originally intended to do.
Okay. I'll make the motion that we reallocate, or that we continue on with the grant and they'd be allowed to reallocate it towards rent.
Okay. Councillor Pearson, does the motion on the screen capture your intent that council authorize the 2017 grant for Team Sooke Juan Fuca in the amount of $3,600 to be repurposed for rent?
Yes, that's fine.
That's good. Okay, and that's fine with the seconder. Any discussion on the motion as it's presented? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. And if our corporate officer may advise Team Sooke accordingly. Thank you. Okay, next up is 7.3, Friends of Sooke Community Policing and Officer Appreciation. I'd like to welcome Ms. Roseanne Day forward, please. And if you could please turn on the microphone, and we have 5 minutes on the timer. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Roseanne Day, and I'm here representing the Friends of Sooke Community Policing and Officer Appreciation. Our purpose is to honor the working law enforcement officer and support Sooke victim services and community policing to fill in gaps not covered by current funding. Our project will be a life-size bronze statue dedicated to all working law enforcement officers. This community art project is intended to demonstrate appreciation, support, and a permanent reminder of our gratitude. For the officers and their family, we need a bigger and louder voice than the person who thought it was a good idea to spray paint F to police on Wadham's Way, just around the corner from their office. We need to fight back the front page and newscasts and remind everybody of the vast majority of great officers who rarely get a mention. We need to create a positive message because they deserve one. And we need recognition they do not have to die for. This statue is named Embrace. It is a public embrace to the many wonderful and brave people who serve and protect. It depicts an officer in their working uniform embracing a map of the Sooke RCMP district. When doing the research for the statue, it seems that people want a picture of being hugged by the police or having it look like they are being taken away by them. This design accommodates for the public to be able to have their picture taken being hugged or standing next to the officer. A separate stone monument will be etched on the front with our sentiments written by the Sooke Writers Collective, and on the back will acknowledge major donors. The project is easily available to expand to future plaques and dedications the RCMP may want to add. Although intended for every law enforcement officer everywhere, it will reside in the District of Sooke, and Sooke is the community to benefit most from the extra help to victim services and community policing, which is why we would like a special relationship with you. What help would we like from the District of Sooke? A one-time $5,000 donation towards the statue, assistance with permits and permissions to place the statue at the RCMP station or other suitable location, and 3, to have the District of Sooke host and officiate any ceremony associated with the statue. Our initial and tentative outreach has shown extensive community interest in the project. The highlights of the support we have received so far include 50 members on a Facebook group that has just been opened, Staff Sergeant Jeff MacArthur, Sooke Victim Services and Community Policing, artist Linda Gordon, current president of the Sooke Community Arts Council, sculptor Nathan Scott, Krista Rossner, executive director of the Sooke Fine Arts Society, and area representatives Mary Dunn and Ron Larson, residents of Shirley, Leighton Ingwar from East Sooke, Marlene Berry from Otter Point, Valerie and Henry Strong of Sooke. Also expressing interest, West Shore KIT, Keep in Touch volunteers, Sooke Harbor Toastmasters, Hans Fredrickson from John Horgan's Community Office, Royal Canadian Legion, Member of Parliament Randall Garrison, and Wanda Fuca Electoral District Area Director Mike Hicks. This is our first public presentation of the project, and as we are working on getting a fiscal host, we have few pledges but are not able to collect any donations yet. We expect this to be dealt with very quickly. Our fundraising goals and timeline would be to have the statue erected and this project wound up within 1 year. We thank you for your consideration and look forward to the District of Sooke becoming our partner.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation as well as providing the materials to us as well and for taking the lead on this. So I'm wondering, just a question to staff, with our community grants program open or maybe it's closed as of today, would this have been a project that may have fit that criteria or not? Sometimes we have projects that come forward outside of the grant timelines or ahead of or whatever. I'm just asking.
Thank you, Your Worship. We did look at this through the community grant policy, and it did not qualify as it's not a nonprofit organization applying for the grant.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. I just wanted to check that avenue. Okay, questions from Council. Councillor Ray, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And we were speaking just before the meeting briefly about the SPA committee. Is that in place now?
The SPA committee is not yet reformed, but the funds are there in the SPA. That's the Sooke Program of the Arts Fund. But Councillor Pierce, so is that it? Councillor Casper?
So my question to you to staff, is this not a project that could come under the classification of community enhancements? Because if it's doing something, to enhance, I guess, people's views of those who serve and to get a message out, to me that's an enhancement to the community, and we have a big fund that's called Community Enhancement. And our council will be doing budget deliberations within the next month, and one of the line items is Community Enhancements, which has a pretty open-ended definition in my mind.
Yeah. We have a couple of projects that actually fit that model too. One of the things we would like to do is go into the schools and have them draw a picture or write a story or something that's positive about the police, and then we want to, at this this meeting when you guys are going to host the celebration, we'd like to hang them up and then at the end give them to the RCMP officers in a binder. Also, at all the venues, we will have a art book where people can write and write nice things or say good, positive things to them, and then we're going to have those as well to hang up. So it is a larger community effort.
Okay, so clarity on Councillor Casper's comment. For staff, you were looking at the budgeting item, the community enhancement budget space, if this would fit the criteria. What I'm hearing is that there potentially could be support. It's just where would the funding come from, seeing that the grant category is not an eligible fit?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, I'm not specifically sure about this particular thing, but the community enhancement the money is slated to go on publicly owned property by the District of Sooke. I believe the intent was it might be on the RCMP property or it might be on our property. It's something I would have to look into, and I could certainly bring it back.
Just one more comment. Well, I would hope that what we would factor in is that we do spend money on enhancements on Ministry Transportation Highways property, which we don't own. So I would sort of look at the RCMP building and property in a similar vein. That's just my humble opinion. That if we can spend money on highways property that we don't own, maybe we could also do the same thing with this project. Just a thought. So hopefully that'll be factored in.
Any other comments? Councillor Berger, or questions? Councillor Berger, then Ray, please.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Seeing as how this is just, you're just starting, this is just the inception of this, and there's no funds sealed as of yet, and the total estimate is at $88,000. I guess through you to the applicant, would this, if we made a motion to bring this into our budget deliberations to see where the best fit would be, whether it's community enhancement or the Sooke Program of Arts, so that wouldn't be giving you a decision right now, but it would be allowing us to bring it up during our budget deliberations to see where we could find the funds if council so chooses to invest in this project. Would that be okay to put it off till next month?
Actually, it would be wonderful if you do put it off this month, because we are trying to get be a fiscal host, and that would allow us to, that's a registered charity that would take us under their wing and keep the money in trust and then pay for the items that said so. We want to be above board and have everything just really pristine. So
excellent. So
I don't want anybody handing me money today.
So then my suggestion would be we will wait for you to find if you have a fiscal host and then have a discussion at our budget time.
We actually have a commercial fiscal host, the Victoria Foundation, but we're not sure that we're going with them yet because there are other opportunities locally that we might choose. So we do have one in the background, but so if you would continue, we just won't take it from you until we're ready for it.
So I'll go to Councillor Ray, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think, in principle, I think it's a lovely idea. But I'm going to be one of the people that speaks to as responsibility for taxpayer funds. Just a couple things. The organization's not a nonprofit, and the second piece is it's a direct award to a particular artist. And so it's been my practice over the years that I've sat on council that there's always been a process there for RFPs. And so I'm a little uncomfortable right now without the information from staff. So I'd like to ask for a staff report before we start looking at bringing it into discussions in the budget to understand whether or not this is something that fits within the mandate of what we're doing.
Well, this sculptor is one of 4 sculptors who's been chosen internationally to do the Canadian Prime Ministers. He did the Terry Fox statue, and he did the statues and some of the statues in Sydney. He is also the closest foundry able to do this type of work. So to sue.
Yeah. If I can, Your Worship, just to respond, and I appreciate all of that, but for myself in terms of process and what we can, I just don't like making decisions on the fly because sometimes if you make those decisions on the fly and give assurances that it's, without having that information, that's something that we can do. I would just feel more comfortable before saying yes or no.
We have the paperwork as well to become a society and to incorporate down the road. However, I was told by Revenue Canada, since we're a one-off, sort of we're one project and we're not ongoing, that we should do this other avenue of try and piggyback on with another charity. And secondly, it takes about 18 months right now, from 1 month to 18 months to get incorporated and do that. And this project should be done before then.
Okay, so just in hearing what's sort of been said around the table, is a motion that perhaps may be considered is that council direct staff to provide information on the source of funds during budget deliberations contingent on additional information regarding the fiscal house and any additional Revenue Canada information be provided.
Your Worship, but I'd like. I'm not sure if that captures whether or not this project falls within the funding in terms of using taxpayers' money. Does that make sense? Like, it's just, like I said, I struggle with the fact that it's a direct award from a nonprofit society that's coming before us. And if that's fine within the rules that we work in, then with our local government act or charter, I'm fine with that. But I need to know first.
So we can add the info on source of funds and ability to proceed with the request during budget deliberations contingent on additional information on the fiscal house, the Revenue Canada information be provided. Would council like to move a motion like that? Moved by Councillor Ray. Is there a seconder? So this way we're not, we'll get a little more information from staff on where we can fund this, whether it be the community enhancement, if that be an option. There is additional, we do require the fiscal house is being worked out, and then whatever Revenue Canada information gave that you alluded to, if that copy of that could be provided, that may put some of councillors' minds at ease on that. And also just confirming that we can proceed lawfully with this request. So I have a mover, I just don't have a seconder for it. So okay, it's seconded by Councillor Loggins for discussion. I'm just going to turn to our corporate officer.
Sorry, I didn't catch all the words that you said in that motion. I was just wondering if you could suggest some amendments to incorporate that into what's on the screen so that we capture the motion as intended.
Okay. The council directs staff to provide options for funding sources and ability to proceed with the request to council during budget deliberations, and then contingent on additional information regarding the fiscal host and Revenue Canada information be provided.
Now, am I providing that?
Yes. So we would need you when you have because obviously when you have the fiscal host in place, you could provide us with confirmation, and then we could proceed with that, provided it clears the budget deliberations. And then also just in terms of Councillor Ray's comment about it not being the society, you had mentioned that Revenue Canada provided this avenue. If you could just get something from them.
Okay. No, she told me that on the telephone, but
I would just phone back. They're pretty good, and you can explain that it's going to municipality and you need something that will form the public record, and then I think that'll just put some minds at ease there.
Okay.
And that might then confirm whether or not we can have that ability to proceed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Loggins?
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation today, and also for taking on this project. I think after we lost Constable Sarah Beckett, the bronze statue was, we learned how important that is to have in our community. So I would love to have one here. My concern now is that if we are requiring you to acquire a fiscal host and be attached, therefore, to a charity and a nonprofit, then it should technically go through the grant process. and the deadline was today. So, and that's exactly why I struggle with it, because then there are other organizations who are going through the grant process the right way, and it's just the timing is off. So I just want that to be part of the report perhaps as well, because that kind of is a bit of a sticky point where we're all of a sudden letting an organization in last minute on a process that should have been done the month before. So that's my only concern there.
When we get, we'll see how the motion proceeds, and then we can see where we're at then. Other comments or questions on the motion from councillors? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Okay. So moving on into the agenda then, into item number 8, the public question and comment period, please. So I'd like to open this up for any item on tonight's agenda, including the additional information, the supplementary information, and the new business items that are on tonight. Anyone would like to come forward, please? We just need your full name, your address, and if you could let us know which agenda item you're speaking to, we can find it properly in our reports.
Herb Haldane, 3118C Otter Point Road. This is referring to 11.1 Murray Road staircase. I've got the supplementary papers. I had some other questions from what came out in the agenda, but these are good enough. So at this point, the only document that I could find that related to any engineering was the one from Rysick, and it says on page 15, if you read down second paragraph halfway through, narrow rectangular piers a line down the slope can minimize the impact of the surficial creep by allowing the surficial material to slide past while not pushing supports over, provided that the footings are set on stable ground. Well, there are no footings in the work that's been done there so far. There's an 8-inch sonotube about 1.5 feet down in the ground. And it says, however, there remains possibly larger scale natural slope instability unless the storm drain on Murray Road to ensure that the storm drain is still functioning and not contributing to the erosion. There's no report in here about whether the storm drain was checked or whether or not it's even been looked at. If you look at liability and limitations on page 17, number 1, the failure of a contractor retained by the client to perform the work required for the project in accordance with the applicable contract documents, which there are only the contract documents from this engineer, and they haven't been met from the criteria on the other page. Any project decisions, number 4, made by the client, if the decisions were made without the advice of the consultant or contrary or inconsistent with the consultant's advice, which they are. And then if you take again on the very last page of this, page 18, documents and reporting. All of the documents prepared by the consultant or on behalf of the consultant in connection with this project are instruments of service for the execution of this project. Consultant retains the property and copyright in these documents. Whether the project is executed or not, these documents may not be used in any other project without the prior written agreement of consultants. And the reason they put these in there is because it's proprietary, and they want to get paid for every job they do. If you look on the other pages, it shows some engineering from a project on Phillips Road, which does not pertain to this. And I think if you asked Herod Engineering if they're okay with using their drawings for this, they would tell you no. And in conjunction with this comment I just stated, they in fact will not assume any liability of any kind on a project that they didn't do the engineering for. So I would hope that somehow this comes back to the table, we have a better look at it, and we definitely get some other pricing on it and have some people who are qualified to do the work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haldane, for bringing those forward, and we'll get to them when we get into the actual report, which I've moved forward anyway. Okay. Other comments and questions from members of the public here tonight? Okay, so call for a second, Tom? Okay. Looks like everyone is good, so we'll move on into the agenda. So going to move, this is where we shifted a little bit. So we'll start with 11.1, and that is the Murray Road staircase. This is a continuation of our last... Sorry, okay. You are correct. 13.1 was first, yes, okay. My apologies. 13.1. Yes, the Sooke Seniors activities. I think I read that out first, and then I wrote them down in chronological order. So here, last year, we received a presentation, a delegation from Ms. Carol Panowski about the Sooke Activity Center. And then I since met with Ms. Panowski and others, including Councillor Casper, in December, and to find out where we're at. And I sort of suggested that in order to move forward or to see where council is with this, that something in writing be provided, as well as sort of sharing more what the vision is in writing, so that we could talk about it and then decide where we're going to go. So when you look through the agenda, you'll see here that there is a formal letter, and it's to look at this point just for agreement in principle to support a 55-plus activity center on Lot A. And it sort of outlines a few things here. So, and then there was the various pages of information that are in here. So I'm wondering perhaps if council has more questions about this, we can get into that, and then also, and I'll invite Ms. Panowski up if there's any questions about this that we can't make any, get it to answers on as we look at this. So, thoughts from members of council. I mean, for me, I like to see something writing. I do appreciate in the one diagram, the various diagrams, the first one on page 6, it lays out the floor plan. And in our meeting, I had said that I'm not comfortable with another single-story building being put on this land. I know that the library is, and we've agreed to that, but given that it's in an area, there needs to be higher density, and they had already responded with the sketch design to have accommodation housing on the floors above and potentially up to 8. So we see sort of a sketch there that would have that. In my opinion, it shouldn't be limited just to seniors, because our workforce always also needs family, and I think having a variety of people live together is probably more balanced than just one demographic on its own. And then we have more information that was provided. So, turn it to council. Your thoughts on how you'd like to move forward? Councillor Casper. Councillor Casper is also our representative on the Age-Friendly Committee and has done extensive work on this as well. So, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for the benefit of council members, the seniors groups, I use a term in the plural, have been very supportive of getting some form of approval in principle so that they could move on in order to raise some funds for this project. They're not asking for a blank check. There would be no further commitment if funds aren't raised, and they've acknowledged that they need something that they can go to different parties with, because it would give those other parties who may want to grant financial assistance to this project some form of security that it's going to be at a specific location. And the way I look at this, that we've actually got an opportunity here to further utilize Lot A to provide a benefit to the community. And there's nothing stopping this particular space if it is built, for being used for any other group or organization, be it youth or other family members or anybody who may want to find some space that they need to rent or occupy, and the seniors groups recognize that. One thing I just want to say is that in the correspondence that's been presented, the thing that I think all of us have to think about is that how can we further engage seniors within the community itself, and how can we make sure that seniors and others actually engage with each other. And sometimes, there's a situation that can affect a number of families, and that is isolation. And isolation is probably one of the most harmful aspects of growing older within society. And by having this type of facility, not only can we help to relieve and to stop that from happening, but also to encourage engagement with other age groups or demographics within the community. Because I think seniors have something to offer our young people, even our middle age, because they're a wealth of knowledge and experience, and perhaps this type of facility would help accommodate those types of things that they're trying to do. So, you know, what I would hope is that Council would support approval in principle for utilizing a portion of Lot A, and we don't have to get too specific right now, because that will unfold. But they've got a footprint here, and I think if we give that commitment, it'll allow them to get on with the job that they've committed to do, and to go out there and seek other funding from other organizations and groups, or even private citizens. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Casper. It was really well stated. Did I hear a motion in there or not quite yet? I kind of did, and that is that Council provide approval in principle for a portion of land in Lot A.
Well, I'm prepared to make that motion, and I would hope to get a seconder and then hear further discussion.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Pearson. I'll go to Councillor Pearson as the seconder, then Councillor Ray, then Berger.
Yes, I think that looking at the proposal and the addition of affordable housing in our town center, which is, Lot A is going to be, accessible from all sides. It is the center of our town, and I think it's a good use in principle, and I support it, particularly if we can add a component of affordable housing into it. And again, Councillor Casper has eloquently stated some things about age-friendly environment and being there. And again, this is a center where I think if we have seniors living upstairs as well as others, then there's that natural connection to your community. So, I'm a big supporter of anything that helps people age in their town where accessibility is provided. So, I think it's a worthwhile project. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ray, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I think what really did catch my attention, it's been an ongoing discussion for a number of years, but it's not just affordable housing, it's affordable housing for seniors. And I think there's a number of areas to look for partnerships, and would also encourage, BC Housing has already got involved with the Knox United Church. Here's an opportunity to tap them for affordable seniors housing. So I certainly support the motion and wish you the best of luck.
Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. And while I share the same views and comments with my fellow councillors, I unfortunately can't support this going forward the way it is, because here we're talking again about another piece of publicly owned land like we have on Sooke River Road in the absence of a park plan. We don't have a plan in place. So we all heard what happened with the horseshoe pitch, and with all due respect to the horseshoe people, it causes issues when we don't have a plan and we start to dedicate things in the absence of a plan. So I have a hard time with dedicating land without a plan. This is the taxpayers' land. And I also struggle a bit with the financial component of it. Within the letter it says that $255,000 is their starting point. $55,000 of that is raised by the group. $200,000 that is set aside that the district holds for seniors housing. To build a 5,000 square foot building with Part 3 of the building code, which is for public use, I think we're looking at millions. And so I wrestle with how we're going to get there. I can appreciate the fact that partnerships can be made. I also can appreciate that affordable housing, seniors housing is a need in our community, a senior space is a need in our community. I have heard lots of people talk about taking that $200,000 and maybe adding some more to it and refurbishing either the community hall or the Legion and making a dedicated space of the existing building, which would be far less than having to build brand new. So for me, I wrestle with the idea of not having a concrete plan in place, both financially and as well as for the taxpayers' lot that now has been purchased in the middle of our town center. So unfortunately, in that absence, I can't support this going forward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Loggins?
Thank you. I'm really glad that this came forward, and I think Carol and everyone else, I know that you've done a lot of work with this over the years, but everyone else has been part of that process, because it looks like something's actually starting to come together, and there's an actual solid vision there. I definitely love the idea of affordable housing on top as well. I do struggle the same way Councillor Berger does, especially in terms of the $200,000 that we have set aside for community center funding, because we haven't really discussed the arts yet. There are other community, I guess, designations that want different things out of this fund. So I guess the lot and the fund both don't have a plan. As Councillor Berger mentioned, I would love to sit down and hash out a plan for that. That's what I'm hoping the Community Centre Committee will be able to do in terms of the funding. And in terms of the lot, I've been asking for 2 years now to have a discussion about what Lot A should look like. And I think that definitely needs to happen so we can outline what the taxpayers want for that land. And I think that this would be the perfect thing to go there. I just want to have that conversation first.
Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I do agree in part with both Councillor Berger and Councillor Logan's. And my vision in the purchasing of that property was to land bank so that we weren't making a decision, or we actually weren't going to make a plan, because if you plan everything for a piece of property, it doesn't account for as time goes on. But we're an aging community, and this has been on the table for some time. It's basically been a conversation since my first term started in 2011. So I do support it. I still don't like the idea of mapping out every part of that property, but to look at projects as they come forward, because what we may think is important today and in 2018 may not be as important in 2020. And so that's my caution about planning all pieces of it. I think you do have to recognize that sometimes you have to make a decision as how to use some of it, and that's why I'll support this in principle at this time.
Okay, thank you, councillors. I will also be supporting the motion. I think not having an activity centre that's open right now is causing harm to residents that do need one. I think it is leading to isolation and potential loss of life, with people being isolated in their home and everything associated to that. So in order to be a healthier community, it is getting people out together. And I know that there's been many ways where the groups have been trying to do that. And I agree with Councillor Ray that this has been talked about for a number of time. We do see that there are 3 parties all as signatories to this letter, and so it's showing how the community is already working together to see this through. And I hear what the other councillors have said in terms of what is the overall vision for Lot A, and I know that is something that we talk about from time to time and haven't actually done. So an opportunity would be to put a notice of motion forward to actually do that. However, part of me thinks of the John Phillips Memorial Visioning Plan that came to be, and any time we tried to do something with it, we never did. And we do have a plan still sitting there for the property next door, and we're still even waiting to have a sign put up. So sometimes there can be a lot of planning, and it's just the follow through. But in this case, I think it's timely just to move on with it. There are other items in the letter here that the groups are asking for our support for. I kind of had the first one broken out just when I heard Councillor Casper speak. I think the other items, for myself, it may be helpful to have a staff report come back with those items, because it is getting confirmation about the funding, its purpose, what the fund was for, so that we have clarity on that, the types of uses, what the zoning would permit, how the other things can work for the housing projects, the outside activities. I love that I'm seeing a basketball court here, and the business plan in terms of what staff commitment may be needed to do that. So that's where I think the first one motion would be, or we can even add one to provide a report on the other items that would come back to council. So we can add that as an amendment, or we can just do them separately. Councillor Loggins?
Sorry, just to clarify, add which as an amendment? Sorry, my mind was...
Well, it can even just be a second motion, and that would be that council directs staff to provide a report on the other remaining bullets, because in the report there's 6 bullets, and we're sort of dealing with the first one, and then there's the 5 other bullets that I think we need just broader information on from staff on how. I don't want to agree to all those things when we don't necessarily have full confirmation on them. I think we could use more information on that.
I agree. Could we do that as a second motion?
Yep.
Because I have an amendment that I'd like to propose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's just something I threw out there. So do you have an amendment for the first
Do you
one?
want me to second your motion?
No, because I'm not moving one. We are still
I'll
just on the first motion that was already moved and seconded, and that's that council support the use of a portion of Lot A for a senior center in principle. So you wanted to move an amendment to that?
I do. I wanted to move an amendment that we support the use of a portion of Lot A for a community center and support, in principle, the seniors drop-in center in leading that project and acquiring funding. I can't make that sound as good as our staff can. But my reasoning for that is because...
We need to have it seconded before you
sorry,
can speak to it. So you want it named then more that for a community center...
So that we allocate the land specifically for a community center,
Okay.
since that's something we've needed for a long time. And that since the seniors... what is the actual name of this?
Call it the Seniors Activity Center.
The Sooke Seniors Drop-In Center would, that we also support them in acquiring funding for a seniors center in that location.
Okay, so you're actually for a community center as well as a Sooke Seniors Drop-In Center?
No, just I guess that just opens it up. I can... I should have explained it first and then made the motion. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the Councillor Ray was talking about needs in the future, and we don't know what those are, but we've always known we've needed a community center. It's something we've been lacking, and we've done the research for it, and we've had the plebiscite for it. So I can comfortably make a motion that we need to allocate specific lands to for a community center at Lot A. What that would look like, I would like to include arts in there as well. And that's something that I don't quite see fit into this, but I'm sure it can. So I trust that the seniors drop-in center might be able to wiggle some things around to make sure that we can include that. But I'd like that discussion to happen at the community center committee. So if we could have that discussion once that committee is formed, and get a bit more detail that we could add to that center, and also get more people rallying to support the center and get more funds on top of the additional funds that we have here. Does that make sense?
Okay, does that change that to me changes the actual context of the motion entirely? Yeah, so it would have to be a, I don't see, it's not a friendly amendment. And I don't mean that in an unkind way. I think it's the group is looking for support for the senior center in principle, and I think as they roll along, those other pieces are going to form part of the business case and the other components. So I think the motion has to remain as it originally was. I'm sort of seeing that from the mover and the seconder. Okay. So let's just leave this as it is. Okay? All right, so, and then, okay. Because the other part here is where they've integrated appropriate supervised youth activities, seen there, and then there's the business case. So, okay, we'll start with the first piece. Councillor Casper? Microphone.
The question of the proponents. Does the motion satisfy your request and what your letter asked for?
Yes, I think so. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would allow you now the opportunity to proceed with seeking funds elsewhere, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. Just following Councillor Casper's train of questioning here, I just have a quick question as well. I mean, through you to the proponent, would be in looking at a 5,000 square foot building, which is what you'd want us to allocate a portion of this lot for, do you have an idea of what that design cost build would be? Because I don't see any figures in your proposal, and that's what I wrestle with. I wrestle with the fact that if we tentatively give a portion of Lot A in the absence of having a plan for Lot A, in the back of my mind, just sort of knowing a bit of the construction world, this is millions of dollars for this building. So
Okay, so just procedurally, because there's a live motion on the floor, I actually can't go back and forth. I should have caught Councillor Casper on that because the motion, this discussion is solely with council at this time.
I do understand it. So speaking to the motion, this exact conversation that shouldn't have happened, sorry, to put anyone in the hot seat, that's what I struggle with. I struggle with not having a plan with such an extravagant cost attached to it. So I wish I could support it. I hear lots of comments throughout the community saying that maybe if we took the $200,000, which again we don't have a plan for, that's in the reserves. We know it's for community center or senior center. I would love to get something going as soon as possible. I don't see this being a quick thing because of the huge cost attached to it. So, I mean, maybe this table needs to look at how much would it cost to renovate or work with the Legion Society, and maybe could we renovate their downstairs floor and create a whole new purpose of space and repurpose it. One half go dedicated to what the group is interested in, another half for the Legion. I just think there's more to explore that would be far more financially feasible and responsible, so we can get this going at a faster pace. So,
Okay, Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I certainly understand Councillor Berger's concerns. I think for me, it's in the letter as it's written that before you can even start to look at funding, you need the support in principle. Excuse me. And I think I don't see anything in the letter that suggests any expectations that the District of Sooke would have any further commitment than what we've already put here. So if they don't raise the funds, then they don't build the building. I also get worried when we try to sort of juggle too many things at once, and I think that's been some of the challenges that we've faced over time. And that's my personal opinion on council, is you're trying to do a lot of things at one time, and sometimes what happens is you don't really get much done. And yes, we did have the referendum, but the referendum was about the need for funding for a community hall or a complex, but it didn't say that it would be new. There were conversations about looking at doing some, sorry, I'm getting a little tired, renovations to the community hall, for example. I think what this does for me is it says, look, we have a plan, we have an idea of what we'd like to do. It involves affordable housing for seniors, and I have to say that is what really garners my support, because I am mindful of the community hall and the Legion. But I also see that you're looking at, in the future, preparing a business plan. And I think at that time that will be important going forward. But as I see it, it's up to you to get the funding and get this into place and to find your partnerships. So I don't have a problem in principle. If you can't do it, then the land comes back to us. That's the way I look at it. So I will be supporting it, but I do take into account the comments made.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question. Final question? Okay, comment? Go ahead.
I think that I will support this motion, but I do, and solely because it is in principle, I want to make that very clear before I do vote for this, that we have a lot of questions, and we do support you. But we have a lot that needs to get done, and we'll hopefully, through the Community Center Committee, we can also assist you as a greater group to get that done. So.
Okay, so I'll call the question on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Berger is opposed, so the first motion is carried. The second one then is that council directs staff to provide a report on the 6 remaining bullets outlined in the letter dated December 14th, 2017. And that's where we can get just clarity on those remaining items and sort of what we need to do from those pieces. Is someone prepared to move this motion? Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any further questions on this? It's pretty straightforward. I think we'll have more questions when the staff report comes back to us. Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? And that too is carried. That one is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. And let us know how we may assist in any way. Okay, keep the dialogue open. Okay, so we're going to now move to 11.1, and that is the Murray Road staircase. We'll just maybe take a pause as we have some folks leaving. Okay, so we're on 11.1, the Murray Road staircase. When this item came forward last year, I know that council had a few questions about it that were not answered at that time, so now it's come forward here. Before we go any further, though, there are some questions that were raised earlier, things like the footings, the storm drains, risk assessment, and the ability to transfer engineered work from the Phillips project to this one. Is staff able to comment a bit back on those items?
Thank you, Your Worship. When we put this to tender, we had an engineering firm go out and assess it from a geotechnical perspective. We also told them that we would be using the existing stair alignment. We were not asking anybody to have a realignment of stairs. We just wanted to use the same location, and that's why within the bid program itself, we gave we inserted the staircase that we used at Sun River, just as an indication of the stair construction itself. As I said, the stairway will stay on the same alignment. We had a geotechnical go out there and assess it. The geotechnical came back with recommendations that the contractor is obliged to comply with. And as we go along the construction, there will be interval inspections with regards to the geotechnical report. We did take into consideration about the drainage, but in consideration that we're using the same alignment, it's not going to be affected anyway, and that was also pointed out in the geotechnical report. The bid came in quoting that they can comply with all the requirements as set out in the tender. We only had one bid, and it came in at $74,000.
Okay, and was there you can transfer the engineered works from one project to this one? There was some comment.
We utilized Herald engineered drawings for Sun River as a basis for the staircase construction. We're not asking for a direct copy of that staircase.
I see. Okay. All right, I'll turn to other councillors. I know there was some comments, questions. Councillor Casper.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the report. I've heard enough, and I'm prepared to make a motion that council instructs staff to retender the Murray Road staircase project. That's my motion.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion?
Second.
Okay, any comment on the motion? Just retender it and off we go. Anything from the mover or seconder that you'd like to add?
Well, if I may speak as a mover,
Yep.
I think that the waters out there have to be retested, and the marketplace has to be retested. I wasn't 100% satisfied with what was presented at the council meeting in December. And right now, I think that in the public interest, and I'm speaking in the public interest, that this project should go back to a tendering process, not an RFP, but a tender, and that we seek further bids.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Casper. Anything from the seconder? Nope. Councillor Ray? Oh, pardon me, Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. Just to echo a bit of Councillor Casper's comments, I too left the December council meeting not feeling comfortable with the new price and the sort of estimated price that we were told we were given. It was an estimate of $75,000. I think just to, I guess, make it as clean as possible is to retender it. I know it probably might not be the best news that staff wants to hear, but I think going forward, we do need to sharpen our pencils, and I feel like there can be something. Another bid could come in at a better price, so I support the motion.
Okay, Councillor Ray, and then I'll turn to staff.
Yes, Your Worship. I guess I left the December meeting early sick, and I'm just wondering, was there anything done illegally in this process? Like, I'm having trouble understanding why we would retender something if it was done in the normal process and in good faith. And the fact that we only got one bid, it's not the first time we've only got one bid. And to ask for something to be retendered because you want to test the marketplace again, I don't think that's good governance, personally. And so, as I said, I wasn't part of the December 11th meeting, but it looks to me like things were done in the appropriate order. So I won't be supporting or retendering. I think it'll cost and add more money to the District of Sooke, and I don't think there'll be anything saved.
Just to comment on Councillor Ray's, and then I'll ask councillors if you have anything to add. My recollection from that discussion, though, was there was concern about the bid coming in. Was it 20 or 25,000 over what was originally? It was originally budgeted for 50,000, 25,000, and then it came in at 75,000, and there was just the one bid. It could be the time of year. The bid went out for a week, sort of tail end of November, if I'm not mistaken. And so there was concern then that given the timing of the year, that may have been the result of receiving one bid. So sometimes when different entities have this, I know that Transit ran into this with the bus lanes where the budget came in significantly higher. They decided to wait, and then things get retendered again to look for more competitive pricing because there'd be more contractors available.
I just have a follow-up question, Your Worship. Had BC Transit awarded and had work already started under the
No.
Oh, well, I think this is a little different, is it not?
Well, I don't know. I'm just speaking generally that we sent it out to have the stairs, like obviously there was the geotech on site, and I'll get staff to comment more, the archaeological assessment, and then it came time where they needed to be replaced, so it went up, and then we got the report in December with the one bid, and it was much higher than what council had expected it to be. I'll get clarity from staff, though, and that's where we asked for the tender and everything to come back, or the RFQ to come back to council. So, to staff now?
Yes, Your Worship. The original budget of $25,000 was to repair the existing staircase. It wasn't to rebuild a failed staircase. We were hoping to get to repairs before it failed, and then it failed. So that's why it is more expensive. We've also got another staircase now to deal with. So these things need to be dealt with quickly before there's insurance issues. We've been advised by MIA to deal with, the risk of these issues and people using different access points that aren't secure to get to the pier, for example. Everything was done in accordance with process with this project. And it was in error that it said in the December 11th report that it was looking for council approval, because it didn't require council approval. And it did come in at 74,000. I wasn't at the meeting to add comments, but it was 74,000, and it was just the one tender. So it was public tender for, I believe, 3 weeks. It is likely to come in a lot higher now if we retender it, but those are my comments.
Okay, other comments from members of council? So I think it's, I'm just looking at the report that we received back in December. It was just a one-page report. It was the budget transfer, I guess, that staff was asking for at the time. I think the challenge is that, we are aware that the stairs have fell, but this is sort of the first time that we've had the conversation about it. So in here, I can appreciate what you're saying, where the MIA wants this to be addressed, but we don't see that noted anywhere. Council became aware, I think, through Twitter that the stairs had failed and that they were closed off, and then there was signage for everyone that went down there. So I'm aware that people are finding ways to get on, up and down, and we need to find ways to do it. It's just the information, I think, that we were asking for. So other comments from Councillor Berger, please.
Yes, thank you. When this first came to us and we were first asked to extend the budget by $50,000, I felt very uncomfortable, and I believe that I pushed my button. I said, listen, at $75,000 was our previous council report, and it was an estimate at $75,000 is what it said in the report. Without any further information, that's when I myself said I'm not comfortable. I'd like to see the actual tenders. Past practice, when anything needs to be fixed in the public realm, whether it be stairs or whatever we've done previously, we've seen the tenders that have come in, the names of the company and what they've bid, and then council then has had a discussion as to, does this fit our budget? Do we need to increase our budget? Which is going to work? So on and so on. So for me, I just left feeling very uncomfortable because we didn't have information. And so that's what led us to the next council meeting where I thought the information would flow through with tenders. That's when we found out there's only one tender. I guess right now I wrestle with the idea that if we're using the plans from the Sun River stairs to build the exact same stairs at Murray, but yet they might not be the exact same stairs, and there's a geotechnical report. I guess I wrestle with how do we come up with an accurate tender then? How do we get an accurate bid in with what we have right now? And again, I can appreciate that this is probably not the way staff wants to go, and I apologize. But for myself and spending taxpayer dollars, I think that it's important that we have all the appropriate documents in place, and maybe we need to do engineer drawings for and I can see our CIO right now saying that we do have appropriate documents, but we just heard from our engineer, from Mr. Howitt, that they use the Sun River Stairs drawings in the bid tender. So I think just the cleanest way and the best way for me to feel comfortable would be to retender the project based on drawings that we have that are specific to Murray Road.
I'll go to our CEO and just want to clarify something on how long the bid was open, because someone mentioned 3 weeks, but I see the date from October 26th to November 3rd. So to me, that's just a week that it was up, not 3 weeks. I'm just reading what's in the material here.
Your Worship, I believe that was a typo in the original staff report. The tender was open for 3 weeks, from what I understand.
So it wasn't 3 weeks. No, it was just a week. It was just a week, yes. Okay. Yeah, it's not very. I know, but just now when I spoke earlier, I heard a comment that, because I said that it was only up for a week, and maybe that's why there was only the one bid, and I heard someone say that, no, it was up for 3 weeks, but I'm just reading the tender and I'm seeing a week. So I just want to say that I think I was right, but if someone wants to suggest otherwise. Councillor Loggins, and then...
I asked the same question to staff. I received clarification. It was 1 week.
It was 1 week, yeah, okay. Anyway, go ahead, back to our CAO.
No, the only thing I would caution council through your worship is that staff did follow proper tendering processes, from what I understand. It was a single bidder. The proper processes were followed, and the contract was awarded. Work has begun. So the likelihood, as our Director of Finance said, of a legal suit against the district as response to us retendering this is quite likely. In addition, because now the cost is known out there, if we do retender, the cost is likely to go up. So I just want to caution council that there's two issues resulting from this potential motion that you're about to pass.
Okay, and then this is why we heard from staff then that actually dealing with the tender is not a decision of council. That falls under delegated spending authority, and that's why the work has already begun? Okay, I think my interpretation was when we received this report, because it came forward, that no work would commence because council didn't wanted it to come back with more information. So that's when did the work start? Before this report came to council. Or the last report came to council, the work had already started. And then this report was just the budget transfer. Really, that's what was happening and highlighting that.
That is correct.
I see. Okay. I'm not sure who is first, but I think I have Councillor Pearson, then Loggins, then Casper.
Okay. So I supported this motion to retender this project for a number of issues that were raised in the December meeting. The screen clearly said approximate price of $74,000. When I see approximate price, and I raised it at that issue, $75,000 is our current technical spending authority where we don't have to tender a project. I see proximate. I don't vote for it. We voted to turn that project down. I was surprised to see that the project went ahead. On that week, work had already commenced prior to us approving the project, and when I left the meeting on that December night, I was clear in my head that that project wouldn't be starting until we had more information, and that the project would be re-looked at and more information. So a lot of things have transpired between December and now, and the project still it's been stopped. So somebody stopped the project based on, I think, council's direction. I was very uncomfortable in December. We also passed a motion in April, which we've had projects come to us for $25,000 and more. We passed that, and it hasn't got to final reading, and I understand that. But our intent of that motion going forward in April was every project over $25,000 would come back to council. We had a project sitting here in December without complete information at $74,000 approximately was what was on the screen. Made us all uncomfortable, and I think we all voiced that. So a 1 week tendering project process, in our own documents, it says it has to be out there for 30 days. So now we've got a 7-day tendering project where we only got one bid in the winter. So still a lot of uncomfortable. I'm voting for this motion because I think it will clear the air.
Okay, Councillor Loggins, then Casper.
I have similar concerns to Councillor Pearson around the approximate 74,000. I understand completely that the delegated spending authority is 75,000, but again, it's that unconfirmed number that makes me a little nervous, and that's a bit of a red flag for me as well, because if that's going over, then what is the process? Does it have to come back to council in order for that money for it to go over $75,000? I'm not sure. But we've run into trouble with that in the past where things have gone over and then we've had to backtrack, and approve things that have spending that has already happened outside of our control. So I think getting up to that $75,000 mark makes me a little bit nervous because I don't know if that's going to mean 80 or 90 or 100, especially when the plans are for a different location.
Councillor Casper.
Thank you. Through you, I just have some basic comments. One is that it's been seven months going on 8 months since the failure of the stairs had first occurred, from my recollection, and just counting back, maybe 7 months. Also, I concur with Councillor Pearson. In April, Council gave clear direction. There will be no contracts awarded over $25,000 unless Council approved those awarding of those contracts. Pure and simple. That's what Council's position was, and we have a policy, and this body is paramount. It makes a decision, it passes a motion, and that's what it shall be. I stand by that. I've always stood by that. It's different if it's a bylaw, but as Councillor Pearson noted, there were some other spending authority sought by staff on financial matters that were over $25,000 that we had to approve. The other point I'd like to make, and I think this is important, is that we had, eyes wide open, approved $25,000 because that's what we were advised as to what the estimated costs were. And, I thought, okay, I'm going to do the right thing and make a motion at the December meeting to actually clearly identify and set aside funds that can actually apply to this project in the new year, which is 2018, so they would not be lost. And that motion was passed. So I think, Council has done its bit. But when I left that meeting and then the next day I'd found out that work had already commenced without having proper funds reallocated, then, that gave me a little bit of concern. So I think that, as Councillor Pearson said, the cleanest way to deal with this thing for everybody is to retender the project. Thank you.
Okay, so just for clarity on this motion, though, we're basically saying to retender this project, and that is using, as I look at that is using the tender documents that have already been put together. We're retendering it. That's what we're asking staff to do. And then I would expect to see that this exact package then from dated October 26 is the one that's being used to retender. Are we clear that that is what we're going to expect? So then, should that motion pass then I think any more commentary on the Sun River case or using anything from Sun River, sort of that conversation is over, because we are directing staff clearly to retender what is in this package. So I know that some have had concerns, and I even raised it myself about the ability to transfer that work over. We got a response from staff that seemingly concludes that topic, should this motion pass. Right? Yes. Because that's all we're asking. Right, okay.
And if I may, I would hope then that in that retendering process that all the I's and T's are, crossed and dotted from our end, and that the issue that you raised and what was raised publicly at the public session, that all matters would be taken into account to belay those fears and those concerns.
But that's just by using the same...
Yes, I know.
Okay.
But, I don't have a problem. If they redraw new drawings for this site, fine. If they get permission to utilize these drawings on this site, no problem. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's just that whatever works. And so that means you go to the signatories in this original document, can we use these documents here on this project? If permission's granted and there's not a problem with the people who were hired to supply those drawings, so be it. But if they say, no, listen, you got to pay extra for new drawings, then that's what it should be. That's how I think.
Okay. Got it. There's a response from staff?
Yes, Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, the intent of the Herald Engineer drawings in the tender was not a copy. It was to use as a template for the staircase construction, is all it was. And if permission from Herald Engineering is required for the tender package, I can certainly look into that.
If you don't mind, Mr. Howard. Mr. Blackhall?
I'd just also like to add that $74,000 was the firm price. That's their price. That was the bid. So it's not an estimated $74,000. That was the bid price. So.
Okay. All right, anything further from anyone then? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Ray is opposed. The motion carries. Okay. Carrying on in the agenda. Back in order here. Bylaw 9.1, we have number 688, zoning amendment 2298 Phillips Road. I'll turn this over to our planner. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. The application before you tonight is to rezone 2298 Phillips Road from rural, RU2, to medium lot residential, R2, to allow for a future subdivision to create an estimated 15 lots. The minimum lot size in the R2 zone is 600 square meters, and the applicant has also applied to include the property into the sewer specified area. This is a zoning map of the subject property and the surrounding area. Within the southern portion of the property is a steep slope that leads down to Demamuel Creek. Abutting the northern property line is a strip of park called the Demamuel Creek Phillips Connector that is about 5 meters wide. This strip of park creates a buffer between the subject property and the Sun River Estates development that's located to the north. To the west is Demamuel Creek Golf Course, and to the southeast is a neighboring rural property. The applicant has prepared a sketch plan of a proposed lot configuration for 15 strata lots. Due to the proximity of steep slopes, a geotechnical report will be required at time of development permit, and this will determine appropriate setbacks from the top of the steep bank. There is also a riparian area around the Demamuel Creek, so a riparian areas assessment will also be required. In efforts to ensure that there is adequate parking on site for the future residents of the property, the applicant will be providing more than what is required by the zoning bylaw by constructing an additional 13 parking spaces along the proposed strata road. After the visitor parking has been constructed, the remaining width of the strata road will be 8.4 meters wide. When submitting building permit plans for future lots, the applicant has also agreed that the parking space for the suite will be designed to be independently accessible. After discussion with CRD Parks, C-Park, Sooke Parks Department, and the applicant, securing parkland around the Demamuel Creek riparian area, as shown highlighted in yellow, is recommended to protect the watershed and the surrounding environmentally sensitive areas. In addition, there is existing park and green space surrounding the property, so should any opportunities arise, acquiring the proposed area as park will allow opportunities for dialogue to occur on potential future trail linkages to these surrounding existing park green space areas. To meet the policies in the official community plan, staff recommend that prior to final adoption of the rezoning, that the owner enter into covenants with the District of Sooke to secure additional parking spaces within the development and create design standards for suite parking, to provide a $5,000 cash contribution to the Sooke's Affordable Housing Reserve Fund, to have the applicant do a geotechnical report, a riparian areas assessment, and provide parkland dedication. The applicant has reviewed the draft covenants and has no concerns. The applicant's also here tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Just a question on access to the site. Sometimes I've heard from other residents that live along Phillips that it's difficult for them to turn in and out of their property because of the amount of traffic that comes down Phillips from, say, Sun River, and sometimes the speed of traffic. So they get a bit nervous turning in and out because of the sight line. So I'm wondering if there has been any conversation yet about improving the sight line to this site to be able to safely turn in and out.
Your Worship, there hasn't been any specific dialogue with the applicant at this point in time, but as the rezoning goes through, in particular with the subdivision application, we can enter into dialogue with regards to sightline improvements if required.
They're needed. Okay.
That's
Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment on that. I don't find that Phillips Road is all that busy, other than perhaps as people come home around 5 o'clock. I think what the issue is that people don't do the speed limit. We've had complaints. Complaints have gone to the RCMP. That area is 40 kilometers. No, actually, that area is all 30 kilometers an hour. So I think that's something for policing, not for the developer. But I'd like to just give first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 688.
Okay. First and second reading has been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Loggins. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. In looking at this, at first I felt that it was a good fit, sort of how it backs onto Sun River. But then in looking through, I saw that there's 3 lots that are 350 square meters roughly. One's 361, another one's 361, and one's 350. I just get challenged at seeing small lots. To me, that says density, and density, in my mind, is supposed to be sort of infill for Broom Hill, all those other land uses. So I was happy to see they weren't all, because when I first read it, I thought, oh my gosh, are these all 350? So I went and looked at the site plan. My other concern is sewer. We have had lots of talks about sewer and have yet to see our full sewer servicing plan to see if we have enough sewer capacity even with our sewer specified area large lots that haven't been developed yet. So I wrestle with the idea of expanding the sewer again outside of our density sort of core area. So those are just things that I wrestle with. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like, are we pushing the envelope too far? We have had discussions within the last 6 months about how once we reach 75% capacity, we have to look at expanding the actual system. So how close do we want to get to that without a plan of actual expanding the system and without having funds readily available to do so? So I know it's only 15 or 16 lots, but the 3 that are smaller lots which speak to higher density, I believe all of Sun River is 500 or 600 and above. So I know it seems funny didn't pick about 3 lots, but I'm concerned about the added development and where we are with our sewer.
Over to staff, please.
Your Worship, I'll answer the first the question or the statement about the lot size. This is a bare land strata. And lot sizes can be varied. They can go down to a smaller size than 350 square meters. They can go down to a size provided that you can comply with all the appropriate setbacks, front, rear, and side. I hope that answers that question. You just can't increase the density. So, for instance, on the parent property, under the existing zoning, if you were allowed 15 lots, and if you want to go bare land strata, now you can have 15 lots of lesser size. So I hope that allows or explains why there's a 350 square meter lot there. It's called a strata lot.
Sorry, through you to Mr. Howitt. Thank you for that explanation. When I read the RU2 to R2 and then I looked up the R2 in the zoning bylaw, I missed that. So if anybody registers a bare, I just want to make sure I have clarification on that. So if anybody registers a bare land strata basically within any zone?
Let's take the zones away from it for a minute. And if you have a zone that allows 1 acre lots, say for instance, and if you have 100 acres within that, on that zone, on that piece of property, in theory, you would be allowed 100 lots. The only thing that the Bearland Strata regulations do is allow you to have lots of lesser size. You just can't increase the number of them. As far as the sewer goes, the next thing on the agenda is the application to include this property into the sewer specified area, if I can address it now. We had the development and the proposal reviewed by Stantec, our engineering for the sewer. They've taken into consideration all the capacities of Sun River and the existing flows, and they have no concern with this number of lots going into the system at this time.
Yes, thank you. And I read through that report as well, and I appreciate the fact that the sewer serviceability was done. I'm just looking greater. I'm looking bigger. I'm looking at, I know there's a few lots within the town center and within the sewer specified area right now that are actually undergoing sewer serviceability studies as well, and they're within our, densified sort of community growth area, whatever we want to call it. I know this is identified in the OCP as a community residential area, but when we think about density and where we want to see lots of infill and where we want to see all the density, it's more in our town center. So I'm thinking bigger than just this lot. I'm thinking where are we with our overall sewer? Do we have funds to expand the actual system? We are getting close, and I just wanted to put to rest to council that I do struggle a little bit with that. I'm not sure. I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable because I feel like we're getting close. I believe it was a meeting within the last 5 or 6 months that we were advised that we're nearing 70%. And in that report also said when we get close to 75%, we do have to look at expanding the entire system. So just to share with my colleagues on the table, I'm thinking sort of overall that's weighing on my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Berger. Councillor Casper, then Pearson.
Yeah, just in light of what Council has previously directed staff to do is to give us a fairly extensive report on what our requirements are within the sewer service area as a whole. I think the application is premature. I'm actually getting quite tired of these one-offs where we're doing expansion of the sewer specified area, expansion of sewer specified area, and it's just been going on for a number of years without taking into account our responsibilities to the other property owners that have paid in some way, shape, or form over the past 12 years to actually have capacity for our sewer system. So I won't be supporting first and second reading at this time. If this application was 2 or 3 months down the road, when we have a better idea of what the true capacity issues and total capital costs to just provide the basic service to the existing boundary, then I could look at this in a different light. But I don't have that information. Yeah, there might be capacity on Phillips Road down to the pump station, and there might be capacity down West Coast Road. But you know what? All of these things that are added on and added on and added on will create bigger problems in the long run. So that's why I can't support this at this time.
Councillor Pearson.
Well, I think there's two issues here that the contiguous to the sewer specified area is the question at hand, or the inclusion, I said, and it's contiguous to a major subdivision on there. So if we included this in the sewer specified area, the risk to the district without zoning, without the change to the zoning, is one sewer hookup. That's the reality of what's being asked here. So I have no issue with this being included in the sewer specified area. Whether the zoning passes or not, we don't know. It's premature to think about that.
Well, the question right now is about the zoning, though.
I understand that.
The next report will be about sewer inclusion.
This just schedules a public hearing. That's all this does.
Well, it's first and second reading to
Exactly.
change the zoning.
Exactly. So I'll support the rezoning.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Through your worship, can I just clarify that to have an R2 zoning does require sewer, so they are kind of
Exactly.
connected. Maybe the sewer application
Should it be
should
first?
have been first. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Just a question for me. Over on Sun River on, I think it's Willow Park Way, there was a smaller a smaller section of Sun River that went in that was quite successful. They're all 1- and 2-story homes. There's no suites in any of them. If you go up Phillips, it's to the right, and it's the cul-de-sac there, and they have a different building design than sort of the main subdivision has. I'm wondering if anyone can recall what the lot size of that was, because that's smaller than the sort of main phases of Sun River.
Yeah.
I think they were around 400 or something.
Your Worship, if I may, if you were referring to what we commonly call the senior subdivision in
No, further up. They were done in, I don't know, 4 years ago or so.
Okay. Excuse me, Your Worship, I just realized what you were...
400.
Yeah, they're 400 square meters approximately.
Thereabouts, okay. And then there's also the townhouse phase in Sun River as well that has a mix. They would be smaller than... So through the subdivision, there is different size of lots is sort of my point. So that's where with this particular application is contiguous to one that has a mix of lot sizes already. Okay, so we have first and second reading moved and seconded already. So unless there's anything further from council, I'll call the question then. Question? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a question. Through you to staff, do we know when that sewer capacity, I think it's in the midst of being done, I believe we were told at a meeting previously. Do we know when that will be coming forward? And again, I apologize to the applicant that's here. I wrestle with the idea of adding more lots outside of our town core when we're not quite sure where we are.
Okay.
So sorry, through you to staff.
When will we receive that report?
Your Worship, the report that we were coming forward with in $65,000 that was allocated was for a flow monitoring report, and that would give us a better handle on our statistics for and our modeling. It will confirm what we have in the way of capacity in the piping system. The plant itself is fine, but what we're finding now is we were going through the rigors of getting some tendering documents with regards to the flow monitoring, but we're finding that our water inundation this year is so significant that we need to deal with that, or we're not going to get a positive recording of our flows. And I will be coming forward in the next meeting with regards to the reallocation of that funds to go towards working on fixing the water inundation before we do the flow monitoring, because doing the flow monitoring right now won't give us any kind of accuracy on with regards to the pipe capacity within the system. Getting back to this development as a whole, if you read the documents from Stantec that's in your package, Stantec has looked at it from the provision of all the other pre-purchased and all the other developable areas within the sewer service area, and they still think that the capacity is sufficient on the Phillips Road.
Thank you.
So I'm hearing then that, okay, so we're going to see a funding allocation or reallocation come back, so it'll just given the flow, so that means that this report hasn't started yet. I was hoping that you would say we're going to get it next meeting so we can use it for budget deliberations, but...
No, Your Worship, we've been dealing with our engineering firm when we were trying to procure the services of these flow monitoring companies. And two things came up. Is one, they're a little more expensive than what we were originally told. And secondly, as I said earlier, we are having such an issue with water inundation right now that if we did flow monitoring, we're not going to get any kind of accurate report at all. So we would like to take that funding and put it towards identified 10 manholes that are significantly introducing water that we need to fix. So that's what I will be coming forward for.
But so then that doesn't, in terms of understanding where we're at in terms of sewer capacity and what percentage point we're at and whereabouts we're at, we're not going to see anything like that soon then.
No, but Your Worship, again, given the information from Stantec, we're comfortable that we can still support and move ahead We do have numbers, the percentage of the flow, but it's not the capacity at the plant so much as the capacity within the system with the water flows, and that's what we need. And the idea of the water flow report that we wanted to bring forward would give us an indication of the next couple of years of where we need to increase the capacity in the pipes itself, and then that would give us a better understanding of what we're at the plant.
Okay. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. I just one more follow-up question with staff. As I go through the report, I saw two different maps. One showed, it was a colored map that's on my iPad, and it showed 600 square meters and just those three that are 300 square meters at the very front. And then there's another, it says this, it's on the sewer servicing concept map where it shows all of the lots are roughly 351 square meters. So I'm just wondering what the lot sizes for the proposed lots would be. Thank you.
Through your worship, the map that's with part of the sewer report was the original concept plan, and since then they had adjusted the plan to have a bulb as per the fire department's request. And then with that, they lost a lot, so it went from 16 to 15, but majority of the lots are still the 600 square meters, with the exception of the strata lot averaging of those three small lots in the very beginning portion of the property.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll call the question then on first and second reading for the rezone. All those in favor of the rezone? Opposed? Councillor Casper is opposed. The motion's carried. Next, then, that a public hearing be scheduled for zoning amendment bylaw number 688 in accordance with section 466 of the Local Government Act. Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so then we moved 10.4 forward, and that is sort of, kind of goes with this. This is a sewer specified area proposed boundary adjustment.
So, excuse me, Mayor Tait?
Yes?
There is another part of the motion that was attached. We just couldn't fit it all on one page, but it's part of the report.
Oh, I see. Okay, so then there would be a third motion then that prior to final adoption of zoning amendment bylaw number 678, the owner enter into section 219 covenants to address the following, as stated there. I won't read them all out. Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Loggins. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously as well. Okay, now we're moving on to 10.4, the sewer specified proposed boundary change. Staff report? Is there anything to add?
Thank you, Your Worship. Given the conversation that we just had, there's a staff report in your package, and I'd be more than happy to answer any further questions that Council may have with regards to this proposed boundary adjustment, or inclusion, sorry.
Okay, very good. So is there anything further, or would someone like to move the motion, and that's for second and third readings?
Do we have to move the motion?
I guess we should receive the first part. Sorry, okay.
I'll move that council receive petition for the local area service for the property as described on the screen.
Okay, that's been moved by Councillor Ray, thank you, and Councillor Pearson, thank you for catching that. Any discussion on the first motion? See none, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Casper is opposed. And then the second part is then to give first, second, and third readings to Sooke Sewer Specified Area Amendment Bylaw 690. Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any further discussion on the motion? See none, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Casper is opposed, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, it just came to my attention that within our correspondence block, the very last page, we have a young student with us who's waiting patiently in the audience. Thank you. So I know that we have already approved the agenda, but just given that it is a school night and we're heading at 9, is there any way that council can move this item? Can we deal with this item now and extract it from the correspondence? Can I have that motion? Moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Ray to move to extract the one piece of correspondence from the block. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried unanimously to do that. So in your agenda, I believe it's on page 207. It's from young Mr. Daniel Rinnell. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. In your iPads, it's the very last page. It's an email that came through on page 88, and it's a scholarship request. The gentleman is a Spanish international student living in Sooke and attending EMCS, and he's playing music here in the band and through the Greater Victoria Senior Concert Band. It goes on to describe some of his initiatives, and he's been chosen to partake on a trip to Montreal, and so looking for some form of sponsorship, I believe in the amount of $455. No? Okay. I was given a note that the student is here, so that's why I wanted to move it. But okay. All right, well, we've pulled it out anyway, so we'll deal with that. Maybe he's left in the crowd. Councillor Pearson?
Well, he's asking for $455, is that correct?
That's sort of how I'm seeing this, yes.
No, I don't see the ask here.
Well, yeah, he's just asking if there's any scholarships then.
Yeah, there's a fee of $455, and then maybe not that particular amount, but scholarship for that kind of thing or something like it.
It would appear that that's what he's at. He would like to find an opportunity to look for a grant or something that would pay the $455.
Yeah.
That's my read of it.
That's my read of that, is just looking for some...
Looking for us to advise where he could apply to a provincial or another scholarship.
I see.
The very last sentence of his email.
Can you tell me if you have any scholarships for that kind of thing or something like it?
I think it's a polite way of asking, could we help him out?
Yes, I think there is an ask for the funds in there.
Is there a date?
Yeah. Councillor Loggins?
I'm not sure if anyone's willing to provide funding or not, but one thing that I just wanted to mention was that if you were interested in providing funding, that we provide it to the group. 'Cause it sounds like...
I think it's...
I don't know anything about this group or their trip, but yeah, if there are more than one person and we had funding to do that, then that would be nice, I guess. But I without any more information, I don't know where to go with that.
No, I think, yeah, it would be through the National Youth Band of Canada, that is, so... Okay. All right, well, that's interesting. Okay, so at this point, I think, for myself, as I understand it, though, the district can't give grants to an individual. I know that's sort of a criteria under community grants, but even we would have to make some sponsorship typically to an organization of some sort. So as much as we'd like to help any student that's traveling for music or anything, arts and sports or the like, it would be through their actual organization. As Councillor Loggins said, it's always, you want to help everyone out, but it's the inability to provide grants to a fund. So perhaps maybe a motion that staff reply in a letter form, just we've received this, and unfortunately due to these reasons we cannot give a grant. However, in terms of anyone know of where they can get funds from? Any ideas?
Actually, I think one of the more successful opportunities that we've seen is going out and collecting bottles, explaining what they're doing, and I think it seems to be quite successful for a number of kids that have been out doing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we'll kind of leave it at that. All right, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Thank you for that. It was, I was just going with some information that was provided. So, okay. 10.1, Development Variance Permit, 2196 French Road South. And here we have a development variance request. Any further information from staff? It's a variance on setbacks.
No further information, just I have maps available should you need them.
Thank you. Questions, comments from members of council? Councillor Berger?
I'll move the suggested action.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded by Councillor Berger and Ray. Any questions on the motion? It's pretty straightforward there. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. 10.2, budget reporting and timelines. So we have two components here. Staff have provided with a budget to actuals report for information, and also looking at suitable dates to address our budget plan discussions. I know that myself and others do have some days where we are going to be away or in other meetings or have commitments, particularly as they fall during the week. So it's always about getting quorum. Go to our finance director, please. Thank you, Ms. Johnston.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm wondering now whether we should look at revisiting the dates in here in light of the staircase issue. I don't feel comfortable bringing a budget forward that's going to have that significant of a chance of higher costs and an impact on taxes. So I'd like to think about, actually, maybe we should just pull this report until a later date.
We can. For myself, though, I think, we kind of just need to get on with it, and then we can make a change once we get more information. We sat as council wanting to have it completed towards the end of last year, and now just in light of that, I understand that things happen and they go on. And we wanted to talk about, usually council likes to meet and talk about just sort of what the projects are within it and how we carry on. And I know, but I appreciate what staff is saying, but maybe that's just my view. I just kind of want to get it done, but I know that there's other factors involved here. So what do members of council think about this? There's some proposed dates. I'm just looking at, this is the budget to actual reports. Here they are, and they're in the front page. They were looking at potentially 5th, 6th, and 7th. I mean, some of it, the community grant applications, we can deal with that because that shouldn't have an impact. We've had the funds allocated and the grant date has closed. But I can see your point on that. Otherwise, we do a budget amendment. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. In light to what Mr. Blackhall said, in that paragraph it does say that the budgeting process would start January 22nd, but what if we push that to the proposed first reading date of February 5th and we start the process then and then carry onward? Would that be helpful?
So instead of introducing the draft on the 22nd at the committee of the whole? But I think that's the conversation, right?
Yeah, Joel, I'm okay with starting the process. I mean, I don't think we're I believe it's through you to staff, I believe it's April or May that we have to have it done by. So I then agree with you that we could start the conversation and then we have to make changes along the way,
Councillor Casper?
Well, I'm, as I put in my email response to the questions, when I'm available, as others I'm sure did. I'm not available on the evening of February 5th, nor am I available on Wednesday, February the 7th. I am available on February the 6th, but I'm not available those two other nights. Just in past practice, we've never had a timeline problem by getting a budget completed or process completed, especially council discussion, as long as it's done before the end of March. That's from that, and then staff has 6 weeks to compile a bylaw, and then when they get the final numbers from the BC Assessment Authority, then the tax rate can be struck because they have better knowledge as to where everything's going to unfold. So historically, I've never seen a problem arise where budgets and discussions have been completed in and around by the 31st of March. So right now, we're 2.5 months from that time.
Okay, so you're fine with just delaying it then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, it's fine. I'm just one person.
No, I know. I get that. Councillor Pearson, are you away? You're not available in February. Okay. Councillor Loggins.
I just wanted to point out that February 19th is a holiday. And it's in here as an alternative date, but that wouldn't work.
It is not in BC.
Oh, it's not?
Family Day
Oh.
is, everyone else will be on holiday. We will be
we're the
sitting
week
at
before.
council.
Sorry, I was thinking like, what the?
No, Family Day, because everyone, BC, it's on the 12th.
I gotcha. And my days are mixed up because I'm going to be in Florida, so I'm going to be away anyway.
Okay.
But I'm not here. I'll be at a conference on the 19th and 20th. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
My
No, that's
family
fine.
days are mixed up.
They are mixed up. A lot of people have that opinion. So anyway, okay. Well, I think in terms of introducing the budget, just stick with the committee of the whole next week but then Councillor Ray isn't here. So this is what we're running into, and then I'll add that the week of the 19th, I have UBCM meetings that week, so I would be available the Monday. I'm not entirely sure about Tuesday, but typically it's advocacy week, so it's like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So usually there's a meeting the night before. So that's still pending, so then I won't be here on those days. So what we're running into is potentially someone is going to be available at some point in time, and that's why I hesitate in pushing it out, because then it's flu season, we're down a councillor due to illness today, like we're going to keep running out of times. So it's the best efforts to set some dates. Some things like the community grants, I think whoever is in town can deal with those, and then they get ratified, they get dealt with, and we usually work through it quite well. In the past, not everyone has been able to make those presentations either, but that particular funds is allocated out of the budget. So I think we can deal with that. We can all receive the budget on the cow and then go from there. Councillor Casper, this is just really difficult.
Yeah, I appreciate how difficult it is. So January 22nd, I'm also away, and I think I noted that in my original email too. So, and that's not a problem, because if it's just going to be brought forward or unfolded as a document, because we've never seen it officially, correct? I'm just, through you to staff, then there's a non-issue. But I think staff raised an interesting point where they're not comfortable with going with the current dates that are outlined.
No.
That's
So
what
I
I've
hear
heard.
that. So okay. So I guess that pulls. I think just introduce the budget so council has one. We recognize that there may be changes to it. We can give input onto those areas. The committee of the whole has to make recommendations back to council, so then those councillors not available to attend the COW can give their feedback when it comes back to council, so we can capture that. But then I think we need a new report with other dates. I do think, though, that the grant discussion can occur on whatever date. We can put that on February the 5th. It's a Monday. We're used to meeting that date because that date is not a regular council night, so it could be a special council meeting to do with the grants, because then I think any community groups that are needing to know what their grant would look like would give them a bit of time. That's why we moved that intake date forward anyway, and then I think the rest has to change. So how about we... Yeah.
I'll move that council receive the 2017 budget, the actual report for information.
Okay, moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Loggins. Are any questions on the budget to actuals? One question that I have, and it doesn't have to be answered tonight, but since the sewer system has transitioned to in-house, just be curious to know sort of what savings has occurred since that has happened, what unexpected expenses may have occurred, because that's sort of a big deal that we did that, and I think it deserves a bit of attention there. Okay, so I'll call the question on receipt. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then on the dates. So council is advising staff on the January 22nd Committee of the Whole, and January 5th for community grants. The rest, or pardon me, February 5th for community grants, and the rest we will receive a new report on. Does that work for everyone? All right. All those in favor of those dates? Discussions? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay. January 20th. Should write that down, I suppose. Everyone needs to stay healthy because sometimes we run into quorum challenges. Okay, next is... Oh, this is interesting. 11.2, Elected Official Compensation Report from the District of Central Saanich. Oh, the budget transfers. All right. Okay, sorry, I missed that. Sorry, back to 10.3, which is on the screen. Thank you. We have some budget transfers here for capital project carryovers. Tempest E-Plan submission. I'm sorry, I find that the screen is really, it's very difficult to read. Is it? Okay, I'm just going to read my report here and let me know if there's any change. So we have Tempest E-Plan submission, the roundabout, Murray Road staircase, electric car charging station, Demomuel Creek crossing study, Sooke River Road drainage, public space enhancement. So are there any more comments from staff on this, or perhaps we'll leave it to council for questions? With the roundabout, though, I thought that was all done and finished. So I was a bit surprised just to see that there's still some funds here and here. But this is for last year? If you clarify.
Your Worship, the funds that you're seeing here are carryover from the deficiency list that the ministry has still not completed. I had a chat with them probably 6 to 8 months ago, reminding them that the deficiencies needed to be complete because we are still holding this money, and I have not heard back from them on this to this respect.
Maybe we need to send them another letter. I like sending the ministry letters. No sending them letters? But they need to just deal with it. Finish it off, okay? Deficiencies. All right. Councillor Casper, then Berger.
Yeah, just for some clarity, is it possible to actually have just a comment as to specifically what the amounts are for? Is there a deviation in what was budgeted for, an increase or decrease on all of these items or some of these items? Because that would give me a little more comfort.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, I won't get into the Murray Road staircase at this point. The electric car station is on target for budget. What the carryover was for was to, the budget reallocation in this instance, was to go forward because we're looking at doing something a little bit special here. We have an opportunity to have a fast charger and a slow charger, but we need the funding allocated now because we need the new hydro drop to support it. But it's not going over budget.
Bearing in mind that we can't spend public money on private property, so are these charging stations actually on public land and aren't a benefit to business and accommodating businesses?
The actual car charging stations are on private property. We have a lease agreement with the property owner, and we have all the appropriate agreements in place for this, but the actual car charging stations are on private property.
Really? Because, that was never my understanding of how and why we were going to be doing charging stations. I was under the view that we were going to do charge stations on publicly owned land because it's a publicly funded project, and there is no private involvement in any of these charging stations, and it's an actual benefit to a private company. I just don't feel comfortable with the fact that this is what's being envisioned, because when we had our budget deliberations, I guess I falsely assumed that the money was going to be spent on public premises like the Municipal Hall or at one of our parks or down at the marina, the boat launch area, because we have control over some of the parking stalls there because that's on our right-of-way. So I just thought that was the case. You know, I don't want to be a stickler too much, but I just caution spending money, whether we have a lease agreement or arrangement. We don't have a partnering agreement, and we don't have a franchise agreement with these people that I know of, so I'm just concerned about that. But thank you for the information.
Councillor Berger, please.
Yes, thank you. Actually, my comment was similar to Councillor Casper's, but I wasn't sure where the electric charging station was going to be, and I actually was a bit taken aback at the price, and I've come to learn now that it's for a super charging station. I don't know if you remember, on the Sea Park board, we did an electric charging 2 units at Sea Park, and they've now since been installed. The total budget for that was $8,000, and then they received half as a grant for $4,000. So Sea Park spent $4,000 on installing 2 regular EV charging stations. So I wrestle with and I know obviously we must have talked about $80,000 before, and I apologize if I was away. I just feel like that's an awful lot of money when we could do just a regular standard charging at, $4,000 rather than $40,000. But I guess through you to staff, what was the decided location?
The premise of the electric car station was having the fact that they're publicly visible, and so we chose the location. Not only is it publicly visible, but we also had a hydro drop there. It's our kiosk in front of the Evergreen Mall, and that's why that location was chosen.
So that isn't our land there? I thought that was district property.
We have, where the kiosk is actually on Evergreen Mall. We have a lease agreement for that kiosk as well.
Oh, I see.
And we have all our hydro drop and our irrigation within that kiosk as well.
Right, okay. Okay, so in terms of the other items, let's just leave that for a moment. Is council comfortable making I think with the Murray Road staircase, it could be reasonable that we may need a different amount there. So I think that for this report is maybe pulling the Murray Road staircase off of this for now, and we'll get a different, when that report comes back to us, we can make the appropriate transfer at that time. In terms of the electrical charging station, I'm hearing a bit of hesitancy around that. So the other option is to look at proceeding with something in one of our parks, or asking staff to come back with a report on the charging stations. Maybe that would be better, and we can move the rest. To our finance director, please.
Yes, Your Worship. There is an issue if we're not going to do a DC fast charging station. If we just go with what Sea Park has, which is a very basic, very, very slow to charge unit,
Yes.
very cheap for a reason, we can do those. No problem.
No, and I
in our
totally...
parking lot. But a DC fast charger is going to need the appropriate hydro infrastructure as well.
Okay, but maybe just in light of that and getting sort of on top of, it's our first time sort of putting in an e-charging station. I know that there's some already in Sooke, but we as the district have not done one. It may be better then that council receive a report on the e-charging. I think just if you talk about the location, other possible locations, and just why this one is so much, I think that might help us understand and get behind it a bit better.
Yes, Your Worship. I believe there has already been a staff report.
Oh, there has been?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. And that's where we went with this, so I guess I might have missed that as well. Okay, so in light of that, then obviously the direction from council has already moved to staff then. Is that what other councillors understand then?
The only thing I never realized until tonight was that the location. Because I don't recall ever discussing a location, that's all. And that's my only concern. I don't have a problem with the charging station. I don't have a problem with a fast one or a slow one. Doesn't matter to me. It's a good public policy.
Yeah.
But I have a concern about it being located on private property parking stalls. That's my concern. And those parking stalls are not included in the lease. Okay? It'd be different. Now, if the parking stalls were part of our lease with them, then we have control of that land. Well, I don't have a problem. But it's just that it's to the benefit of the vehicle going there, which is a benefit directly or indirectly to somebody who's parking to do private business. And I just have a problem with that. Philosophically, I have a problem with it. I'd say, hey, fill our boots down here or down at the at the hotel where we actually control the road and the parking spots down there. It's up to council. Council can decide whatever they want.
Okay. Mr. Howard?
Thank you, Your Worship. The area for the 2 parking stalls is under lease, same as the kiosk. And it was in the report that came forward previously.
Okay. So that's done. So then, Councillor Ray?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Maybe just since I'm missing a few details, if you could just provide me with the date of when that report was so I can look it up and then I can just refresh my memory on it. I'd really appreciate that. And sorry for the added questions. So we've struck Murray Road staircase on this. So then is council comfortable with the budget transfers for the capital project carryovers as stated then in terms of getting this information? Someone prepared to make that motion? Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Loggins. Is there any further questions on the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Okay. So now we go to 11.2, is that correct? Okay. So this is the elected official compensation report brought forward by our corporate officer department.
I move that we receive the report. Second.
Okay, motion to receive the report by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion? So then that will just leave things as they are, the status quo. And I think just have information from the area. Anything further from everyone? Just be in mind the last time anything changed was in 2008. See none? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, and then we have the correspondence. We've dealt with the one item, but then we have the rest, or pardon me, new business is ahead of that. No, there's a few others. So we have the number 1 is the terms of reference for the Development and Engagement Committee that Councillor Berger had provided. Go ahead, Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. And I want to apologize because right off the bat I've made 3 errors. So if you can just address the in your new business there. So I copied and pasted and I put together from the previous land use committee that our past council had, as well as the development workshop terms of reference that the mayor had proposed. And so in doing that, before I pressed send, I didn't do a proper edit, so I apologize. Under terms of reference, obviously it says council adopted June 12th, 2017. We can scratch that. Where it has council name, I wanted to put or land use. This council talked about the committee and sort of voluntold me to be a part of it. So I wanted council to come up with what do we want to call it. There wasn't a defined name because we had 2 previously on the books. And then also at the very bottom under membership, I forgot to include the bullet that has mayor as ex officio. So those are my 3 errors right out of the gate. So I apologize.
So what name would you like to propose? We have development and engagement, which was one which had a different kind of scope to it. So I think you are correct in and that name doesn't fit this. So Development and Land Use Committee?
Honestly, I'm happy with whatever you guys are happy with.
Development Committee? Seems kind of short. Development and Land Use Committee. Does anyone have... Because I don't think engagement fits. But I'm not a thesaurus, so... I'm not seeing anything, so we'll just call it Development and Land Use Committee. All right, we're getting some agreement there in land use. But otherwise, everything else is fairly straightforward. So there's just a few changes there. So then it would be then a motion that council accept the terms of reference for the proposed Development and Land Use Committee. So would Councillor Berger like to make that motion, and seconded by Councillor Pearson. To staff, please.
Yeah, sorry, was the intent to add the terms of reference? I kind of read the ones proposed by Councillor Berger to really deal with development and engagement, whereas we had a previous land use committee that had its own set of terms of reference that dealt more with the land use issues, like is it appropriate development and zoning and things like that, like Councillor Casper had discussed when putting this motion forward. Is it the intent to combine those for a terms of reference for the committee, or is it just moving forward with, I guess, what I see as the Development and Engagement Committee terms of reference provided tonight?
It's with what was provided tonight, and then it was just the case of what an appropriate committee name was. If you feel that engagement reflects this purpose more appropriately, I think council is fine with that. I'm not seeing any... Development Committee just seems a little bit short to me, so in terms of what the scope is, but that's where if we'll just leave it. If you feel that engagement is more appropriately reflecting what is in these proposed terms of reference, I think that's fine with everyone as well. Just a name. Know what we need to do.
Sorry, no, my concern wasn't with the name of the committee, but whether it was to combine what's been proposed tonight.
No.
Just what's here.
Just
Okay.
what's here.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're good. So then it is, then it's okay to go with Development and Land Use Committee. Okay. Good. Thank you for that clarity then. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. And then to Councillor Berger then, is it the case of selecting public members from folks that had already advertised, or are we looking to send out a new advertisement? Because we've gone through this now, and we've had workshops where we've seen different members come forward and participate in that process. So are we selecting from that group, or are we wanting to re-advertise all over again? You attended all the workshops, so I'm kind of asking you about this.
Yeah, we had 5 public members, 2 in which attended absolutely everything. I don't know what the appropriate process is. Right away, I feel like it should be open to the public. It's sort of a new committee that we've started, and if those people that were a part of it previously want to be a part, then I hope that they apply. But I think going forward, as it's a new terms of reference, new committee, it should be done to everybody to have an opportunity.
Okay, great. So then maybe a motion then that council directs staff to advertise for committee members for the new committee. Moved by Councillor Berger and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any questions on that? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously, and we will wait for that then to fold. I guess the only clarity is how long do we advertise for? A couple weeks? Whatever our standard practice has been for committees. We've had a good response, so hopefully that'll continue. Okay, the next item then is... Part of our discussions have been to have a sort of open house forum a couple times a year. And so last year, some of us were at the Rotary Fair, and then we had the Talktober event. But just looking, and then I think it was last year, not 2017 or early 2017, we had like a mayor's town hall. But I would like to switch it up and do something a bit different and have like a mayor and council open house on Thursday, March 15th in the District of Sooke Council Chambers, 6:30 to 8. We looked at the community hall, and it's busy like pretty much every night of the week. So we just ran out of dates, and then it's the case in terms of capacity, we can host it here because the space is open and it's for us to use. I have some ideas that I know a lot of counselors do work on other committees. You may want to share an update on what's happening there and some of the work that you've done. So just putting this out there that I think would be good to do this. We'll have a sense of where we're at with the budget and maybe other questions that are on your mind that you're looking for answers for, but it's always sort of good to do something. We have an elevator, so it's accessible. There's parking. Just seems like our chambers is a good fit, perhaps. So, yeah. Is that how does that work for everyone? Okay, so that is that approving the motion or moving the motion, Councillor Berger? Moved and seconded by Councillor Loggins. And I'll send out some emails just so we can talk a bit about what that evening would look like. And I'd like to get some of your input on that as well. Okay? All those in favor then? Opposed, motion's carried. Thank you. So then that, following along here, so we have the correspondence then. Move receipt by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Berger. All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried unanimously. We've dealt with the activity center, so a letter of congratulations. This was for the gentleman that did, I can't remember how many, but he set a Guinness World Record. I don't know how many, I can't recall exactly how many squats. 3,500? I can't remember even for how long. It was squats over a, I know it's in here. 5,200 squats, and I know there was an article on it that showed the length of time, and it all went to the BC Children's Hospital Foundation. So given that it's a resident that did something like this, there's just a request that we send out a congratulatory letter. Councillor Ray?
Yes, I'd like to move the motion that Councillor Parkinson has put forward and send a letter of congratulations to Mr. Winther on his
record.
Yes.
And I understand he's going to try to reset it again, beat it next year, so that's pretty cool. All right, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. It is getting a bit late, but I'll ask if there's any verbal reports at this time from anyone. Nope, okay. We don't have any rise and report. There's no notice of motion, so looking for a motion to adjourn the open portion of tonight's